It disappeared. I love technology. Isn't it great, guys? Yes, it is just after midnight and I am a little behind today. I am an over deliverer. I'm just going to own it. I will do more than you expect and I will talk more than you think I should probably. And I will give you more information than you probably know what to do with. And my goal is not to make your brain hurt. But I got involved in this project tonight and I had to cut it down. So we're going to start from the top here, but I just wanted you to know what you were getting into. And that is why I'm just a few minutes late. Well, maybe a couple of hours late getting this out as a live. So you guys bear with me. We're going to get this down to a science. We got 364 more days to make it work, right? Hello, everybody. I am Kay Crystal Griffith, and we are doing a very special event this entire year. And I must be insane to make it happen for 365 days, but I am going to do it, even if I'm late. Welcome to Emotions, Wisdom, and Your Body. And every day for 2021, for about 15 minutes, I promise I have cut it down, we will delve deeper into our emotions, our effects on our body, and really how that affects our body, soul, and spirit. So I have lots of notes. Gotta talk fast. And you'll get it all. And it's going to be amazing. And wait until you hear about all this. So here's your disclaimer. I am not a doctor and I do not play one on TV nor on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're seeing this. I am a researcher though. And those of you who know me know I do that pretty well. That is a gifting that God has given me. And I'm not really sure why, because you would think some of that would be helpful on like Jeopardy. But no, I don't get those trivia things. I can just find things in hidden places. So I will find those most random things. And that is a fruit of my labor. So this is really just for edification, education, and encouragement to teach you more about your body and your emotions. So day one, are you ready? Can you wait? Because that's our word for the day, anticipation. The very act of looking forward, the visualization of a future event or state of being. That could be good, could be bad, or it could be indifferent. You know, some of us with teenagers at home, the anticipation of going to school online right now, not such a great thing, right? Now, is this a negative or a positive? Well, it really can be either. So let's talk a little bit about that. So depending on the expectation of what is coming, now the expectation itself is a belief system, not an emotion. So for example, negatively, if you are expecting someone to hurt you at a later time, then the anticipation really pushes into anxiety and fear. And so now you're into two other completely different emotions than anticipation. Or maybe there's been a challenging trial in your life. I mean, golly, this year alone has been challenging for all of us, right? And so maybe it's gone on for an extended time, but you're just anticipating it coming to an end. Or if you're like my teenager, she just seems to be waiting forever to get that driver's license, right? And so that negative duration of time for her in that moment should end in a positive, right? Because they'll get the driver's license, then they get a little more freedom. And then us as parents kind of twiddle our thumbs at night going, where are you? Now, positively, what does the anticipation mean? It means if you're expecting to receive a reward, then the anticipation stays positive, even through any effects on the body that may be what we deem as negative. So what do I mean by that? So yesterday I mentioned butterflies in our stomach when we go to talk on a stage for a lot of us. So even though we know we're going to get those butterflies in the stomach, we're still ready to go out there and take charge, and we'll probably talk too fast and we'll probably forget half what we're going to say, but it'll all be awesome and then it'll be done, right? So even though there might be a negative in the body, it's a positive result. Now, if you are one of those few people that tend to throw up before you get on a stage, yeah, that just begins another cycle of anxiety. So we want to really help you with that. And I do have some tools for that if you need to get on a stage or talk on Zoom like this. And I can teach you some little tricks of the trade that'll help you with that. So make sure you reach out to me. Now, if we tend to allow those effects, then because of the good at the end, it's still a good thing. And so you've achieved something and you've gone on and you've received something. So some of us or waited for bated breath for Jesus to come back, right? Just to avoid many things nowadays, or what's coming, or what we think is coming, right? So we're waiting with anticipation, and it's a positive thing because we know where we're going, we know who's going to be there, and how amazing it's going to be. So that would be a great effect of positive anticipation. Now, there's a couple of other words that we tend to use for anticipation we should talk about. Now, how is anticipation different than hope? Well, hope is a desire of something combined with that anticipation of it happening. So I love this quote I stumbled upon by Jerry, I'm going to kill his name, Yolsman. He's got to be like Swedish, I'm thinking. All right. So here's how he explains the difference between hope and anticipation. And this is a really good quote you guys are going to want to write down. Ultimately, my hope is to amaze myself. The anticipation of discovering new possibilities becomes my greatest joy. Isn't that a great quote? And explains it perfectly. So I'm going to read it one more time to you. Ultimately, my hope is to amaze myself. You really go out on a limb and you take risk and you know that there's going to be a reward at the end, right? Like starting your own business, right? The anticipation of discovering all those new possibilities in the process of taking that risk. Good risk, mind you, wise risk, calculated risk in many regards. But then there's that faith element, right? Faith is the things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, right? And so that's that anticipation of, I know it's coming. I'm going to hope, but I know I'm going to walk in faith, even though I can't see it yet. Just like that. Isn't that cool? So that's from Hebrews, by the way. Now, the other word that I want you to think about, and we already mentioned it just a little bit, is how is anticipation different than expectation? Well, remember, expectation is a belief system, not an emotion. And we just tend to use them interchangeably. So if we have any grammar police out there, I'm catching everybody on it. Okay. All right. Now, what about our body effects? We talked about the definition. We've talked about whether it's negative or positive, but these body effects are what I really want to focus on for a few minutes. Anticipation is rooted in the portion of your brain known as the cerebellum. Now, again, I'm not a scientist, but I'm telling you what I've learned and what I've seen in the trauma coaching that I've done. This controls automatic, non-thinking behavior. Yes, non-thinking behavior. So when we have that rush of anticipation, good, bad, or indifferent, we then have non-thinking behavior. Well, then why would we want to be anticipating things, right? Here's why. All right, so this is pretty cool. So with this anticipation, when it's always in play, right? When we have this anticipation, we're waiting for something, we're expecting it to happen, right? Remember, that's your belief, not your emotion, but you're hoping for it to come sooner than later. The brain will then make more dopamine. Our bodies are so amazing, aren't they? So dopamine is released when your brain is expecting that reward. So when you come to an association of a certain activity with pleasure, so this activity of anticipation, whatever you're waiting on, you know it's going to be the bomb, right? And so that's a pleasurable activity towards your body, towards your brain. And that mere anticipation is enough to actually raise your dopamine levels. I know, isn't that amazing? So it could be, now I'm not telling you these are all the good things that you need it to be, okay? But I'm just giving you the list that I found online. So that pleasurable activity could be food. Now, overeating is not your friend. It causes a whole nother range of emotional drama to you, to your body, emotional wise. We can have that conversation, got an amazing course on that. But I will tell you, if you've ever been to like Germany, they take like hours to eat. And they don't like ice in their drinks. Totally don't get that. But sidekick. All right. So they take hours to eat. Why do they take hours to eat? Because it's a cultural event. It is the pleasure of not only the food, but the company. And so they're not out for this fast food stuff. They're not out for eating in the car. Like that's all of us right now, right? But they're out for that congregation of time, energy, and really just feeling the effects of being connected with other people. And that is what they're talking about when they're talking about food, because they eat to enjoy their food. They taste the food. It's pleasurable to their palate. Now, there's also sex. We won't get into all that. And then there's shopping. Okay. So, for a lot of people, shopping becomes a distraction, an escape. And again, the anticipation of that then has fallen into the negative, because if you're spending money you don't have, this is not a good thing. And that's going to cause a whole nother set of anxiety issues that we're going to talk about tomorrow. So remember, your anticipation for a reward or a pleasure needs to be things that are wisely chosen in your life, wisely used in your life, and wisely applied in your life. And there really are amazing opportunities here. I had a friend recently began to take up a lot more hiking, and she comes back with all these amazing stories about all these little fun places that she found in the city that she never knew existed. I just found a lake. I've lived here 17 years. Had no idea there was this lake like 3 miles from my house. It's the things that you find when you actually are at home now and you have to get out and start walking, right? Now, let's go back to that dopamine for a minute. So that dopamine is then released from your brain's frontal lobe and then acts as a stimulant. Now, here's the other cool thing about anticipation. Not only is it releasing that dopamine, but guess what that dopamine can do for you? It can prevent pain. It can stimulate arousal, and that arousal could be a number of things. We're not just talking about sex there. And it causes excitement, hence the butterflies in your stomach that we've been talking about. Now, again, where is anticipation rooted? It is in your brain, your cerebellum. And then secondarily, it's in your frontal lobe. So then when that chemical releases, it goes throughout your whole body. So that's tertiary. Yeah, it's late, guys. Now, let's talk about, so the anticipation, you want it to be positive, right? Obviously. And there can be negative. And remember, the negative really tends to fall into other emotions. It's not truly anticipation at that point when you cross into the negative. So how do we create more positive? Well, we don't just go keep spending for shopping, and we don't keep eating, right? Just to eat. And we don't have other things in the bedroom, right? All right. So what are we doing for increasing that anticipation? So to drive positive anticipation even further, we want to create a life that offers reward, and in that reward of expectancy and hope. So how do we do that if we can't control the outcome of what we're expecting or we're hoping for? That is where we find our faith. And so really, you're going to see convergence in a lot of these emotions. I come from a Christian platform. I'm just going to let you know that. And Jesus is in everything. And I can show you how he's in everything. Some of you are going to understand it and others of you aren't. And others of you are going to go, whatever. It is okay to me, whatever you decide to do, but I'm here to challenge you, because I want you to really think about what these emotions are not only doing within your body, good, bad, or indifferent, but also how they're coming through to other people, because that's where your trauma falls. How you are filtering these emotions leads you to making vows, lies, and agreements that are going to change your entire outlook. That whole lens that we see things through, we often talk about the rose-colored glasses. That's what we're talking about. Every single one of these emotions can actually change the color of that lens. And it could be something as easy as really how you took somebody's tone. And from that, you're all up in arms about it. That's called you got triggered. So why'd you get triggered? Because how you heard it through your lens, whether that be eye or auditory, how you took that in is then colored by some kind of trauma in your past. And those traumas can literally go all the way back generations, crazy as that sounds. And I see it all the time in the work that I do. And when those generations are passed on, from those generational issues are passed on generation to generation, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger and harder and more solidified. And it's almost like you're adding a string to the rope, right? 3-cord strand, and each generation you're just adding another strand to it. And before you know it, that type of trauma is like this big. it's just huge. And really, this was an eye-opening situation for me when I got to do this really amazing spiritual warfare work. And we learn more about Indigenous people here in the United States and really what they walk through. And it was just unbelievable. In a download from the Lord, I really began to see why there's such a continued struggle for Native Americans here in the Americas and really all over the world. But it's just eye-opening when you realize how much these emotions are trapped in your body. So we need to make sure that we're reinforcing the positives. We are creating a life full of reward, expectancy, and hope. And we want to make sure that we're not self-sabotaging, right? So we're not going out and buying things that we don't need and, enjoying the whole bag of Cheetos. There's a reason that I can only buy the small bag of Cheetos for $1. All right. I own it, right? Now, what if there's too much anticipation? So if there's too much of an emotion, what then happens? Well, remember, anticipation is very different than anxiety. Anxiety causes stress in our physical body, and it in turn compromises our immune systems. Let's think about our world for a second. Anxiety causes stress in our physical body, and that in turn compromises the very system that we are so desperately needing to enhance right now, our immune systems. Yep, there you go, folks. So I want you to think about that. So how do we, in the middle of all the chaos, then reduce the anxiety? I'm going to give you one quick word. It's called peace. I know everybody thinks that we're in some pageant and the world wants world peace. Here's the cool thing. We already have it. We already walk in it. Because if you have Jesus, you have the Prince of Peace inside you. So guess what? Let the peace inside you overwhelm the chaos around you. I oftentimes find myself in an ER with my kiddo, with me, with somebody. Thank you. New Year's did not end that way this year as it did last. And in the middle of that, I am laughing and I just have to laugh. Why? It's not funny what's happening, but it's funny that around me can be so much chaos that I'm like, so what are you going to do with this one, Lord? Because that's who I take it to. Because that's where we have to find our peace, right? And Graham Cook has a fantastic word on peace. And if you want it, you ring me and DM me and I will get it to you, because I'm telling you, it's a revolutionary word about peace and that peace within you to overwhelm the chaos around you, right? Isn't that just a cool phrase? Let the peace within you overwhelm the chaos around you. I just think it's so cool. All right. So anticipation, in contrast to anxiety, is based on a sense of personal control, we think, right? How is that a control if we're anticipating with expectancy and hope? Isn't it just funny? They take these play on words, right? But the fact is, in a state of anticipation, we sense a mastery over our lives. Like you could be excited about it, but you don't have to be excited about it, which is within your control. So you could know an event's coming, but you don't have to look forward to it. So it's within your control whether you do or not. You don't have to reward yourself for something you've done well. A lot of us actually don't. When we do things on our checklist, we just mark them off and keep going, right? Now, some of you have checklists, others of you have it all up here. I'm not quite that good. And so I really would encourage you, there's something to writing down your checklist every day. Even if you don't, I'm just saying to you, there is something about that, because when you physically cross through that checklist, or to put a check by it, however you do it, my daughter circles her things, a little confused by that, but okay, right? So when we do that, we are rewarding ourselves. There is a dopamine release because we have checked something off. We've completed it. We have finished it. And guess what? We have more authority within ourselves to know that we can complete things. And that's a whole nother avenue that we could go down, which is a really cool one as well. So I just want to encourage you, why don't you test that out for a couple of days? Why don't you make your checklist and scratch off everything that you get accomplished and take a look at that list at the end of the day. And I'm telling you, you're going to have a dopamine flood. It's going to be amazing. All right. So what is our wisdom verse for anticipation? So I looked up a lot of them, and a lot of them had dealt with hope. A lot of them dealt with expectancy. And I really was looking for something that really was geared more towards that state of expectancy, right? So the anticipation itself. And so I came up with Micah 7:7. Micah 7:7. But as for me, I will watch for the Lord. Watching is that anticipation, right? I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. So do you hear all three pieces in there? The anticipation, the expectancy, and the hope? I just think that is a cool verse because it ties all three of them together. So now what I want you to do, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework every day. Now don't stress it. It's not going to be huge, but I want you just to think through what we've talked about. And so I want you to take these verses and I want you to personalize them for yourself. So for example, I'm going to read the same verse, but I'm going to insert my name. So but as for Crystal, she will watch for the Lord. She will wait for the God of her salvation. And her God, he will hear her. Wow. Isn't that powerful? Take a second. Insert your name. I'm going to read it one more time. And I want you to insert your name. But as for he or she will watch for the Lord. He or she will wait for the God of his or her salvation. Your name, your God will hear you. Wow. He hears you. Creator of the universe hears you. Isn't that amazing? Like that anticipation alone, like gets me dopamine going. I really shouldn't do these at midnight because now I still have to go to bed. Now, let's talk about our little closing here. So I really want you to think about how are you going to use this information? What I've shared about anticipation, the difference between expectancy and hope, and what it's doing to your body and the dopamine release. How are you going to apply that to your life? How can you find reward every day in your life to have a natural dopamine interaction for yourself? So remember, wisdom is the hearing, but the understanding and the application, they still have to happen. So I encourage you to ask the Lord more about each one of these things that we've talked about. So in James 1:5-7, it says, but if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives generously. God is not a stingy God, folks. I'm telling you, he's not. He gives generously and without reproach, and it will be given. But you must ask in faith without doubting. So here are your three questions for homework. 1, how has this emotion, this anticipation we've been talking about, been showing up in your life? Good. Has it turned into anxiety? Do you find you're not anticipating anything? There's no judgment here. You just need an awareness around it. So 2, part of what I just asked you, has it been negative or has it been positive? Now the part 2 of this is why? Why has your anticipation been negative, indifferent, or positive? I want you to be honest. And then 3, how can you transform this anticipation by wisdom? By Micah 7:7, by watching for the Lord, by waiting on him and knowing without question, he is hearing you. So how can this emotion of anticipation, how can you transform it? By wisdom, by understanding, and by knowledge, and how you can walk in it moving forward. So all that's one question, really. So I just want you to think about how can you transform anticipation by wisdom, understanding, and knowledge as you walk forward in it. Now, here's your last piece of the pie. I want you to take that scripture, don't forget, and I want you to put your name in it. Micah 7:7 is our scripture for the day. He wrote it just for you. Every single one of those promises, all of them in the Bible are just for you. Now, don't worry. I'm going to post those questions in our chat. And I'd love for you to go live and share what was the most unexpected thing that you just heard about on this emotion. Unexpected about anticipation. Tomorrow's word is going to be anxiety. We just talked a little bit about it, right? And we want to see how we are living out anxiety in our life. We need to own that so we can get rid of it and we don't have to walk in it. We can walk in peace instead, right? Now, join us again tomorrow. much earlier than this, I promise, for more on emotions, wisdom, and your body. And register at kcrystalgriffith.com. So that's the letter K and then Crystal, Crystal, Griffith.com. I'm working on that landing page. Should have the video from yesterday up there if I didn't screw it up. And register to receive more insights and this amazing, can you see it? Feelings wheel. You could even add a little spinner to it. It'd be kind of fun for kids. So we want to get that over to you. And we just appreciate you guys tuning in today with us. You guys have a blessed and restful night's sleep. Take care.